Jumping back into the action now on the Chip Shot Football Podcast, here to talk about more of the coverage on this Amari Cooper trade and talking big picture now with the Buffalo Bills, because I feel like now the AFC has been pretty difficult to sort of determine truly and really convincingly that this team or this other team is truly standing out to this point, right? I feel like everything is looking very close. There's a lot of 4-2, 3-2 teams that one team could be coming off of a bad loss, but the next week they could be beating a team that we're feeling very good on, right? And now that we're 6 weeks in, some of those teams are still, or I would say the majority of those teams are pretty much still in that group. But I feel like now, after a couple weeks of some more consistent performances, we're able to kind of pick out, I would say, 4 teams right now, in my opinion, that are looking like the top of the top, the cream of the crop in the AFC at least. And it's not like the NFC anymore, where there's like 8 or 9 teams, I feel like, that are all competing for all these spots, right? I feel like the NFC is a lot more wide open, and there's not a true, great team in the NFC, right? All those teams kind of have their deficiencies, but in the AFC, I think 4 teams have sort of stood out convincingly right now, and those teams are the Chiefs, the Houston Texans, and the Baltimore Ravens. And now, after this Amari Cooper trade, I would say that the Bills are not quite the team to beat in the AFC, but they're right in that group with those 3 other teams that I mentioned, right? And I believe they're now included in that group, but it also works out that we got a team from the AFC West, we got one from the AFC South, from the AFC North, and the AFC East, how it all has worked out like that. It looks like these 4 teams could potentially win their divisions based on how everything is looking right now, right? The Chiefs are probably going to win theirs. The Texans are probably going to win theirs. I'd be surprised if the Bills don't win theirs. And the Ravens, the Steelers are also 3-2, but they haven't been so convincing yet. So that's where they stand. These 4 teams could probably win their divisions and are going to be vying for those top 4 seeds in the playoffs, right? But it's kind of funny how it works out like that, right? But so far, looking at all these teams and what makes them great, and kind of deciding whether or not the Bills are in par with these 3 other teams, right? We're going to sort of break it down here, right? Looking at each team and what they're made of and what kind of makes them so great, obviously, so far through the year. And looking at the Kansas City Chiefs so far through this year, they are the only undefeated team left of these top 4 teams. They are dealing with a lot of injuries, but when you have, the old get out of jail free card with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and you got a guy like Travis Kelce who is starting to kind of pick it up a little bit here. They just always find ways to win, and that's what makes it so easy to kind of hate them, right? You think that you have them, you think that with these injuries they're going to drop off significantly, but much like the Patriots in the last dynasty that we had, Patrick, Andy, and Travis also included in this trifecta, they find ways to win. They're able to change up their schemes, go to a different option or make guys around them look a lot better than maybe a lot of people will think that they are. And, just win games and know what to do, how to execute in some of those moments to win some of these big games, right? And their defense also, led by Steve Spagnuolo, has been very good in those big moments as well. When they need a stop, where they need to get off the field and give the ball back to Patrick, more often than not, they come through with Chris Jones and guys like that on that defensive side of the ball. And they got that championship dynasty level of pedigree that you just have to consider them a top team because they've earned the benefit of the doubt so far, whether it's Hollywood Brown out, Isaiah Pacheco out, Rashee Rice out. It feels like they should be much worse, but they always find a way to stick it out through these games. And with that being the case, and being in so many of those big moments, right, they know what to do, how to execute, and what plays to go to and what not. So that's the kind of experience and level of just calmness and confidence that they have in some of these big games that have them undefeated so far. So they have to be included in this conversation. But also, you look at the other teams as well. The Houston Texans, the talent is off the charts with this team, right? The roster can match up with pretty much anybody in the conference, in the NFL. They have a quarterback to rival any of the other quarterbacks, pretty much, other than Patrick, I guess you could say. A defense that's compatible or that's capable, excuse me, of getting to the quarterback, getting turnovers with Danielle Hunter, um, with a Will Anderson and guys like that. They're able to get there. Christian Harris is still hurt. He hasn't even played yet. So when he comes back, they're going to be even better. They're able to get turnovers because of that pressure that they generate. And they have a great mix of very young and very experienced guys that I think pairs up so perfectly where Stephon Diggs is coming in, and he's still a great player, right? Abilities-wise and everything on the board, right? But still, maybe he's not as athletic or feeling as physically fit as he once was at the age that Nico and Tank Dell are, and they bring that to the table, but also they're able to pair that level of what Nico and Tank bring to the pedigree, the successful level of experience that Stephon Diggs has, and likewise with Joe Mixon being in some of those big games and being in successful teams that have made it to Super Bowls or that have made it to conference championship games, right? I think they have a great mix of that. And CJ also is very young. He's only in his second year, but he also brings a maturity that you don't really see with young teams like this. So talent-wise, they have everything. The coaching as well has been phenomenal from DeMeco Ryans as well. So they have to be included. They're only 4-1, and they lost to the Minnesota Vikings. But other than that, they're looking very much like one of the top teams. And then looking at the Baltimore Ravens, another team that has a MVP caliber level quarterback in Lamar, the best duo in all of football with Lamar and Derrick Henry also coming over. And they have a clear identity on what they are, what their capabilities are, and how they're gonna stick to it no matter who they're facing. They're gonna run it down your throat, and a lot of times, a lot of teams just can't stop it. So they have a clear idea of what they want to do behind Lamar, behind Derrick Henry, and they have a good supporting cast around them. You know, Zay Flowers just had a massive game. Mark Andrews seems to kind of be getting back into the flow of things as well. So that's great to see from them. Their defense is also, you know, they might have lost some big names like Clowney, Geno Stone, and Patrick Queen, but it still looks capable of getting some of the big stops as well, with still guys like Kyle Hamilton, obviously Roquan Smith, Marlon Humphrey as well, Marcus Williams too. All those guys are great players, and the defense is still considered great. And while they might have given up a lot of points to the Bengals or the Cowboys there towards the end of the game, or even the Ravens or the Raiders to an extent, I would still consider them a very good defense. And they got that experience in the playoffs last year where they were the number one seed, where they got everybody's best shot, and they unfortunately fell short, but getting to that conference championship I think is going to serve them well. And they're looking more and more like a mature team that knows who they are, that knows how to get back to that conference championship. So the fact that they're just steamrolling teams as well certainly helps with that. And then we get to the Buffalo Bills now, right? And much like these other teams, right, they have a quarterback that is potentially a top 2, top 3 guy in the NFL, a defense that may be the weakest out of all these defenses, but isn't necessarily considered a bad defense, right? Like they're god awful. They're still very formidable in some moments that can pressure the quarterback once Von Miller comes back, or with Gregory Rousseau or Ed Oliver and guys like that. So their defense is meets the requirement, I will say, right? They can run the ball efficiently, just as efficient as anybody in the NFL. And, you know, they've been in this playoff fight for a while. You know, Josh Allen has been getting, you know, more and more familiar with that level, with that stage, and competing with Patrick all those times and being so close but just falling short. And now they add a guy like Amari Cooper to this formula that they have going with Joe Brady as their offensive coordinator, knowing what they want to do with the running game, and now adding Amari to kind of complement that is it's why I consider them right there among these top teams in the AFC, where we're starting to see it separate a little bit with these four teams. And the seeding battle is going to be fascinating with all these teams because they're all basically going to play against each other at some point this year, right? The Texans are going to play the Ravens at some point this year, I think around Christmas or something like that. The Ravens have already played the Bills and the Chiefs, right? The Bills have already played the Texans and the Ravens, obviously. I'm not quite sure if the Texans play the Chiefs this year, but that pretty much means they're all going to like face each other pretty much. So how those battles go out and how they perform the rest of the year, it's going to be interesting to see who the number one seed is going to be for this year's playoffs, because for each of these teams, it's going to benefit them very specifically. So I'm really looking forward to that. But for right now, I think Buffalo has solidified themselves to be in this very limited group in the AFC so far. They're not the team to beat yet, but if they get that number one seed and they get progressively better over this year, because we don't know how Amari Cooper's going to look, right, yet. So once we see that and kind of see the potential that this team has with Cooper and Josh Allen, then we could maybe start inching towards naming them the team to beat. But for right now, they're pretty equal with the Texans, the Ravens, and the Chiefs so far. So let me know what you guys think of that and the trade overall, because it was a massive move yesterday. But we do have one more topic to get to on the Jacksonville Jaguars, another AFC team, but very much the opposite spectrum of what we were just talking about, right? They're 1-5, and have they reached the point of no return, or is now the now or never moment for them to kind of turn their season around? Some of their players and Doug Peterson also touch on this topic that we're going to get to and we're going to explain as well once we return after this break. Don't go anywhere.